Oh, happy day, beautiful people. Welcome back to the Positive Thought series. I'm your girl, Yan. I'm so glad that you are back. Welcome, welcome, welcome. If this is your first time, welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm just really happy that you're tuning in. This series has been all about shifting into a more positive mindset, thinking more positively, anything that involves positive thinking, positive thoughts, positive actions. That's what I've been basically trying to promote in this series. To get into our topic for this week, this is episode 15. Isn't that crazy? Like, the time is truly flying. In this episode, we are going to be talking about steps that you take. And so I'm going to be titling this episode, Every Step Takes You Closer to Your Goals. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. This episode, it's called Every Step Brings You Closer to Your Goals. I chose this because I want us to really think about every single step we're taking. I want us to think about the process, the journey that we're on with this positive thought series. I think that with many goals, we always see the end goal, but sometimes we might not be trusting the process and the journey that it takes to get there. The fact that you're trying, the fact that you're here, that's something that you should be able to celebrate. Getting into our first example with the positive thought series in general, you might still have instances where you're in a negative thought pattern. But I think it's important for us to actually focus on the steps that we've talked about on how to be more positive. When a negative thought arises, you can let it consume you. You can decide, you know what? No, let's shut it down. Or you can also ask yourself why. Why am I thinking this negative thought? And I like to do a little bit of the combination of three. It just depends on my mood that day. Some days I will let it consume me, but then I'll come back the next day refreshed. Some days I'll ask myself, why do I feel this way? Walk through it, break it down, and then choose to move forward. And then there's the other way where I'll be like, you know what? Stop, remove it, move on, and I'll just move forward, because it could be just something really as simple as me saying something about myself that's negative, like, oh, I look fat, and I'm like, you know what? No, stop right there. Let's not do that. And so I think that when we're thinking about being positive, just being able to look at the steps that it takes to get into a more positive mindset, we celebrate that. It's not to say that you won't have any bad days, but does that take away from me being a positive person altogether? It absolutely does not. So when that happens, I'm just like, you know what? I'm going to go through this cycle that I have to go through to get past it. And that brings me right into my second example. It just comes just straight from church. I was in church last week, and the title of this was called Breaking Cycles. And the bishop preached, and she basically was just saying how God will put you in cycles, but he'll also take you out of those cycles. And everything that you go through is something that you have to learn from, or it's a lesson, or there's a bigger lesson to be learned in it. When we think about cycles and even just that positive thoughts and sometimes getting into a negative thought cycle and bringing yourself out of that, this is something that we can still celebrate. We can celebrate the journey of what it takes by going through these said cycles and actually breaking out of them and moving forward and learning something from it. When those negative thoughts happen, like I said, one of the things that I might do is say, you know, why am I thinking about this? And really just go ahead and reflect and decide, okay, I'm moving forward. I'm going to think about this in a positive. With those patterns and those cycles that we go through, we can learn from that. We reflect, we look back, and we say, okay, I know why I felt like this and why this made me think like this. Now I can say, I'm not going to do this going forward. And it really is something you have to continue to practice. It's not something that's going to happen overnight. And that's with anything. Another example is I was just out with one of my friends, and we were just having a conversation about boundaries, and she was explaining how she's been doing really great with setting boundaries and stuff, and how the boundary she put in place is, it's great and stuff, but it isn't her, 100% goal as to where she wants to end up with setting that boundary. And I was like, you have to celebrate that, because that is still a win. You have to celebrate the small wins, because that's something she wasn't doing before. She wasn't setting boundaries before. And I was just like, that is something that you absolutely should give yourself a pat on the back for, because every step takes you closer to your goal. Implementing and putting steps in place and actually trying to work through them, that is a success in my eyes. That's still a win. And that's how we should be looking at it. With this series, we want to think about everything as a positive, a step in the right direction. If we're not giving ourselves the credit that we need along the journey, it'll start to make us hate the journey. We have to absolutely trust and love the entire journey. This isn't something that just happens overnight. You don't wake up and you're just positive all the time like me. I mean, again, and I have my days. It's not that I'm positive every single day. I still go through it. I'm human. I go through all of the emotions. I go through them all. Things are going to happen, and I'm basically saying the same thing for you. Our last example is just going to be about negative outcomes and negative experiences. Let's just think about it in terms of you wake up and something just so bad just happens, like whatever the case may be. Maybe your car doesn't start. Maybe you go through a breakup that day. You didn't expect this stuff to happen, but it happened to you, right? You have the power to choose. You could take the step in the right direction and say, I'm going to think about this in a positive light. Like, okay, my car might have broke down. It's okay. I'm going to get it fixed. We're going to figure out what's going on. Whatever happens with it happens. I went through this breakup. Okay, I'm going to feel sad today. That's fine. I'm going to allow myself to feel how I feel. I'm going to go through the emotions. But what I'll do is I'll give myself, let's say 24, 48 hours. I mean, realistically speaking, obviously 24 to 48 hours might not be realistic for a breakup, but I'm saying however long it might take, you're going to put that plan in place to be able to move forward, right? With both of these scenarios and these negative outcomes and experiences, these were things you couldn't control, right? So when you can't control something, you again have the power to choose to just take a step in the right direction. You wouldn't want to take a step backwards, right? You wouldn't want to just say, oh, my car's broken. Oh, well, screw it. Like, I'm just not going to do anything. Oh, I got a breakup going on. I'm just going to choose to just be negative about all relationships. That wouldn't make sense. That wouldn't be the positive thought process that we're working towards having. We'd want to look at this in a positive fashion, in a better light, and actually start taking some steps towards resolving it. Another thing that with this negative outcome and experience is shifting your perspective. You're going to start, instead of looking at these things that happen that you can't control as bad experiences and negative experiences, you're going to start looking at the positives in those outcomes and saying, okay, yeah, the car might have broke down. However, it's not the end of the world. I might have been broke up with, but it's not the end of the world. One of my favorite things that I used to say, if I was having a day or something, I would say, this might have happened. However, life's great. And I love that. And I remember my friends at the time, they started saying it too, because it's so true. We can't sit and dwell in that negativity because it will consume us. But what can we do? We can shift our perspective and we can start thinking about the positives in every single situation. Anything that you deem negative, anything that you see as the negative outcome, you can start saying, I'm going to look at the positives in this situation. And I think it even goes back to just the basic belief that I wake up with every day is I'm thankful that I'm here. These are all steps that we've been talking about taking. Basically, with this topic, all I'm saying is this: celebrate the fact that you're taking the steps, because that is a step closer to your goal. Once you start seeing yourself be more positive than negative, that's the goal. And you'll be able to look back and say, I remember when I was thinking about stuff negatively. Now I'm thinking about everything positively. That's ultimately the goal for this series. And so the steps that we're taking towards that goal are just trying to change the way we're thinking. And anytime we're encountered with something that's going to push us, you know, to think negatively, we're going to say, I'm going to think about this in a positive light. It's important to always have those steps in your head and know like you're taking those steps because it's towards your goal. And the ultimate goal, again, is going to just be able to look back and say, wow, I remember I might have handled this negatively in the past, but now I'm handling this extremely positively. And so pat yourself on the back, because if you haven't already got there with this series and just with practice and doing it on a day-to-day basis, you're going to get there. But remember, you have to be able to look at each step and say, you know what? Okay, I can choose, and I'm going to choose to take a step forward instead of taking a step backwards. We'll close it out with every step that you've taken is bringing you closer to your goal if you're not already there. The goal ultimately is to leave out of this series with a more positive mindset and thinking more positively about almost every single thing. It is possible. And as I said in an earlier episode, I believe in you and I know that you can do it. I want to close out with something that happened on Monday. I had posted Happy Monday and somebody commented on there and said, you know, a great day it is indeed. What did you do to make yourself feel special today? Or something along those lines. And I said, it really wasn't what I did. It's what God did. He woke me up, and that's enough for me to be grateful and thankful. And that's enough for me to think about the day as being special. Because as I always say, every day is a great day to be great. And when I think about where I was to where I am now, I know it was in the steps that I took to get here. And you have to love and trust and absolutely be committed to the process. That is the nitty gritty and the best part about getting to that goal. And that closes out this episode. Like, comment, share, subscribe, and I'll see y'all next time. Bye.